Hey, everybody. Welcome to STRonomics. I'm Bill Faith, joined by my good buddy Kenny Bedwell from STR Insights. Today, we're going to talk about revenue management and not just about how to do it or what it is, but most importantly, should you hire a revenue manager? And I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert. Probably 90% of you, yes, you should be paying a revenue manager. Kenny, why?
Yeah, that's a big one. So
I
the
am the fucking color commentary here. I
yeah,
mean, I'm
yeah, you
supposed to
are.
be the
He's like, do it. This is yeah. And then I'm like, then he's like, Kenny, why do it? So, all right. We'll talk about a couple different points and a couple different reasons, but the biggest reason is because number one, how competitive the markets have gotten, how it dialed in how much time you actually need to spend in doing your revenue management. It becomes almost pointless to be doing it yourself if you're spending, which you have to almost spend 1 2 hours a week updating your prices, going there, adjusting things. What's your time worth?
I think it's more than that, Kenny.
I mean, even then, if even so, like I'm trying to keep it a little conservative on the time to like emphasize this. But if you're spending 4 hours a week, I mean, that's these revenue management companies, even the good ones, like it's still not that expensive on a monthly basis to hire someone out.
The average monthly fee is around 200 to 250 bucks a month for a property,
Exactly,
right? So if
exactly.
you look at 200 bucks a month, if you have a $200 ADR and they get you one more fucking booking, it's going to pay for itself. It's that simple. If you have ADR at 600 or 700, it's a no-brainer.
Yep. And it's confusing to me why people they look at the overall yearly, well, it's going to cost me, we'll call it 200 bucks times 12. So that's $2,400 a year. It's going to cost me $2,400 a year, and for my pricing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're trying to make over, most people are trying to make over 100K on their properties of gross revenue. And I'm like, if they could make you $5,000 more, that's a good investment. $10,000, which they can and easily can if they're doing it right. And that's what we also want to talk about too is how to know who to hire and what specifically to look for. But the reality is the game is changing and you need to surround yourself by experts who can help you.
I think there's two things here, Kenny. I think there's some people that are saying, "Oh, I know how to do it, right? I don't need to continue to listening." Yes, you do. Right? Because it's not just for the newbie that's learning or doesn't know how to do revenue management. It's also for somebody that's in my position.
Yeah.
Because as you know, I mean, our mutual friend, mastermind member, one of my inner circle coach, my revenue management coach in inner circle, Emil Sakal, he's doing revenue management for me at two properties. And, I'm probably going to offload in the next 2 to 3 weeks another four properties. And there's a lot of great revenue managers out there. I'm using Emil. He's teaches revenue management. And I think this is the point, right? So, and people are, Bill, why aren't you doing it? I believe I'm as good as he is. And I mean, I'm confident in everything I do. I'm probably better than him. And I don't have the case studies to back that up. Let's just say that we're equal. Well, why would you pay $250 a month per property to offload that? Because of my time is worth more than that. And for me to really take these big, and I gave him the two OBX properties, Kenny, and like Jose just sent me, we started with a meal like in February and we just broke $700,000 between the two properties, right? And I don't know how much time Emil and his team are spending on those two properties, but I know if I'm managing it, just those two properties are probably going to be 3 to 6 hours a week. Just those two, right? So I look at the time I'm spending on revenue management for me is about 10 to 15 hours a week right now for my entire portfolio, owned and co hosted. Then I look at all of my income that I make, it's not worth my time. Right? And I think a lot of you that are professionals, lawyers, doctors, whatever, and you have 5, 6, 7, 10 short-term rentals, it's not worth your time either, right? So you should offload that. That's number 1 for those of you that were getting ready to, "Oh, they're gonna tell me that when as I learn," and yeah, that's the number 2 is if you're new and you're just getting your feet wet in revenue management, and I'm talking about daily active revenue management, not setting up, one comp set and price labs and just looking at a market research report on this thing for 5 minutes a week. That's not revenue management. So that's where I would recommend to go and hire. And like a lot of my inner circle members, Kenny, they're all 0 to 5 properties, right? I've advised them to hire an Emil, hire a Jake Cohen, and then learn as you go. And then when you feel you have the skill sets, then you can let them go and take it over on your own. But I think there's this mental block that people think they are good at it when they're really not.
Yep. I absolutely agree with that. I think you and I think started a year ago. We talked about this your zone of genius,
The
right?
genius zone.
Yep. And revenue management for a lot of people is not their zone of genius. It's something else, whether it's design, it's like hospitality or whatever. But if you're especially entering into short-term rentals, it's definitely not going to be your zone of genius because you have no experience with it, most likely, unless you work for a hotel before or some software company or whatever. But very, very unlikely. So the reality is you're already behind the eight ball and you're entering into a lot of markets where people are using dynamic pricing and they're not set it and forget it. They have revenue managers and they've been doing it for years. So your competition level for most people is going to be way up here entering in. So you're at a disadvantage going into a market trying to learn your pricing and get your feet under you while you launch a property, even in the first year. And I see it with my clients. I just had a call with a guy yesterday. He was like, "Well, I'm not making as much money as I had hoped." And I'm like, "Okay, first, send me your revenue, your monthly revenue. I don't care about how much you've made year to date. I really don't care. That doesn't tell me this full story." And he sends me his revenue, and it's literally like up 1 month, down another month, up 1 month, down another month. And I'm like, David, look at the seasonality of this market. Look at what it actually looks like and look at where your numbers are at. They're all over the place. And I'm like, that's a sure sign of failed revenue management. I'm like, who's doing the revenue management? He's like, oh, I'm trying to do it myself. And I said, well, what did you do differently in this month where you made like 10x in the next month? And he's like, well, because I was like, technically that month should have been worse than that month. And he's like, well, I started doing like Airbnb like discounts and really like getting involved in the price labs and like doing all this stuff, but it was just taking too much time. And like, so I stopped doing it the next month. And I'm like, dude, like you obviously did something that worked for you. And then you stopped doing it. And what were the consequences? And I mean, it was, I had to paint it black and white like that for him to see, but it all came down to getting in and understanding the pricing and actually doing the work. And if we can't consistently do that, we have to realize that and then hire it out. And there's a lot of services that do that and can do it well.
But Kenny, I don't have time.
Hire it out?
I know to do it, that guy, right? That's the adult version
Yeah,
of my dog
hire it
needs
out.
homework.
That's like literally what I was like, he told me too. He said, Kenny, he goes, like, you literally said that I don't have time. And I was at my son's football game and I was like dealing with like the pricing while he was like playing football. And he just like I had this like realization that like I shouldn't be having to do that. And I was like, you're right. Hire it out.
There
And
are 2 things that people, Kenny, I think in our industry that they absolutely screw themselves by. Number 1 is this, revenue management, and it's, "I don't have time," but yet they don't offload it, and if you just do the math at a $200 a night ADR and the average monthly cost being around 250 bucks, it's a no-brainer because I believe that you could look at Emil, Jake, B&B Labs, John on, I could just continue to go on and on and on. They're all way better at fucking revenue management than 95% of the people that own short-term rentals in the world, let alone just the United States. So they're gonna make you more money. That's number 1. Number 2 is I would, and it's funny that you bring that up. June's here, July's here. They should be flip-flopped, all that type of stuff. And it's all because you're not gonna do it consistently every single day. And I'm not saying that these revenue managers that actually hire and train VAs to do the work, that they're doing it every single day, but they are doing it way more consistently than us as husbands, wives, parents, business owners, W-2s are gonna have access to be able to do it. Number 2 is your response time. That's number 2. And I don't want to go off on this whole tangent, but these are the 2 big things that I see. You respond too slowly to inquiries to book. You respond too slowly to people that are checking out and getting ready to leave you a review. All these things, your response time, and that's because that's the same block that's impacting your revenue management impacts the response time, right? And those are the 2 big things that I see, and they have the same issue, and it's all right here. It's the mental aspect, like you said, Kenny, what's 250 times 12? It's like 5,000 bucks, right? Oh my God, I'm only doing $100,000 in revenue or $70,000 in revenue. I can't afford $5,000. break it down to the cost on a monthly basis and look at your occupancy rate tied into your ADR, right? If you look at $200 a month and you're booking an average, you're at 60% occupancy, I promise you, or $200 ADR and you're at 60% occupancy, I promise you that revenue manager, everyone that I've named here, is going to be able to increase your occupancy and increase your revenue to offset their own cost.
Yeah. I mean, it I don't know, it's baffling to me. And then I'll have a few people too. Somebody came to me and they're like, "Hey, this revenue management company is literally only going to charge me $50 a month for a property."
Hold
And this
on,
other
cowboy.
Yeah, I was like, $50? Like, how much time are they actually spending on your property? They're not, you know? And so like people, it's insane how like dollars and cents people get when it comes to some of these services. It's like I get it. Like you want to be like, you don't want to overspend on something or whatever, but like when it comes to revenue management, that is a big responsibility. And you want to have the best person qualified, the person that can maximize your revenue for you. And it's not a place you skip, just like going with the cheapest cleaner. I feel like a lot of people get that. Like with cleaners, are like, well, this person is cheaper, but do they do a good job? It's based on like ratings and all that.
And there's still plenty of people that are buying used IKEA furniture off of Facebook Marketplace.
Sure. That's very
That's just
true.
all, it's all mindset, right?
Right.
And I don't
So
know that we can change that in a 20-minute podcast.
right, right. Yeah, no, that's true. Just stop. No. But just like you would with your cleaners and other people you trust, you want to hire the best qualified people, even if they're a little bit more expensive. Like cleaners, I will pay extra for a cleaner that does the best job because if they suck at it, my business will suffer. If my revenue manager sucks at revenue management, my business will suffer, and then I got to deal with it again. And it's more time involved in hiring and figuring it out what's wrong and yada yada yada. And so work with people who revenue managers that that they have a plan and a strategy to maximize your revenue.
And
And
Kenny, to take a
honestly, don't worry about the cost.
I agree with you 1,000%, and I've been training people since before, like, you joined the mastermind of pay your cleaners more, pay $25 bonuses for five-star cleans. It kinda goes back to everything that I do in my life, I try to become the person of interest, and it's not a narcissistic ego thing, it's that I want preferential treatment in everything that I do. And so whether it's going into a restaurant, I think I told you the story about when I went into my new favorite restaurant and, became the person of interest there in 2 nights that I went. But it's also like, if you're gonna go to a revenue
Like
manager.
they have your picture up now. They're like, don't let this man in.
Yeah,
At a
yeah,
first
we're going
glance.
tonight, I probably won't. I gotta put on glasses, pull the hat down, or they won't let me in. But becoming that person of interest is critical. So I pay, and I'm just gonna use an example. My condo in Coram right next to a glacier, Kenny, 2 bedroom, and ADR's about 675, just under $700. And my cleaner charges me hourly. And I forgot, I don't even know what it is, but I think it was like maybe $30 an hour or something like that. And I said, okay, I'm going to pay you 40. And I have 2 condos there, one that I own, one that I co-host. Right. And I said, she's like, why would you do that? I said, because you're doing same day turns, which she won't do for anybody else. And I want to be first clean every single time. That's it. And I think it's the same thing with a revenue manager is don't try to negotiate price down. What can you do to incentivize them to where they're taking care of your listing every single day when they might be spending 3 days or 4 days a week on their average listing? To where you get your reporting first, whatever that is. There's a lot of success that I've had in my life because I've been able to position and understand what motivates people to be able to do that in all aspects of life. So don't go to Jake or Emil or John or whoever and try to negotiate them down. Have a mindset of abundance and what can you do to incentivize them to where you can even take them to another level that your competitors aren't getting.
Right.
That's the way that I look at everything.
How do you be the VIP? Yeah. No, totally.
100%. And everything. And, your cleaners, your handymen, the restaurants that you go to, your car dealership, whatever the fuck it is, you wanna be that guy, and you don't have to be rich or anything like that, and a lot of it's just, like, how you take care of these people. Do you treat them like a human being? Do you invest into them? But getting that priority is important. There's no question. If you go in and you negotiate down, what do you think that in anything, what does that person do? You're not the priority. They have a chip on their shoulder because you just negotiated them down. So I just to recap, Kenny, I believe newbies that are learning, they need a revenue manager. I believe people that have ascended close to their financial goals or have a larger portfolio that are making other enough money in a W-2 or an entrepreneurship. I think you are the two, the ones in the I think everybody honestly could benefit from a dedicated revenue manager. We just have to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And when hiring, I do want to bring up the point of hiring and finding the right revenue manager to work with. Obviously, there's a bunch of different services. They'll tell you all about what they do and how they do it. But the biggest thing
On
for me,
Fiverr.com,
yeah, Fiverr. Yeah. Well,
I'll
if
bet you can find a revenue manager on Fiverr, but
yeah,
they're not gonna be any good
you
probably.
could, or even online jobs. So
.ph.
yeah, .ph, yeah. But the reality is, like, have they worked? One of the questions, like for any of the properties that I have revenue managers on, have are they familiar with my market or my region? So
Hang
if
on,
they're
I'm gonna
not,
interrupt you again because I want you just said that you have revenue managers on. So, do you have a revenue manager? Because people are interested in what me and you are doing, right? Do you have a revenue manager doing all of your properties?
yes, I do.
Okay.
Well, I'm no, technically no, but in about a month, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
technically yes. So you're like no right now, but yes, in about a month, yes.
Are those STRVAs, revenue managers?
I do have one property, yes.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
So, but
And
yeah,
just so everybody knows, I have a meal that does 2 properties out of my portfolio, and I will be adding on more,
yeah.
as well.
Well, I was gonna say I have a meal doing the other one. So
Gotcha.
yeah. So yeah, I have one property that I'm actually shutting down. Sad story. We can talk about another podcast episode. Open up that can of worms. I'm shutting it down. Legal reasons, unfortunately. And that one's no revenue management. Then the other one is a VA that I've trained, and I'm involved in it too. And then the last one I have a meal doing. So
Awesome. So what to avoid when somebody's looking for a revenue manager?
first off, I think, we talked about the pricing, just shopping based on price. I think that's stupid. I say look, ask certain questions like okay, cool, you're gonna take over my property. What strategies would you employ? Do you have experience doing revenue management in my market? Because if they don't, then they're gonna have to learn your market. They're gonna have to learn the seasonality, learn the things. And I mean, if you can't find, I mean, if you're in the middle of nowhere, you're in the middle of nowhere. They will still have an advantage of learning faster because they have experience doing this all around the country and they're going to figure it out faster than you would. But know that it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And so I think that the expectation, and we need to say this too, because this is really important. A revenue manager is not a miracle worker. If your property sucks, it's not going to change the revenue. If you don't have the right listing, the right design, decor, those elements, if it looks like your grandma's house, you can't expect them to make you 20, 30, $50,000 more simply because you hired them to do that. It doesn't work like that. And I think that you need to find someone who's going to set those expectations with you and tell you what they think they can do with that property and how they're going to do it and outline the plan. So that's what I would be asking when I'm speaking to people instead of going, "Hey, I'm trying to hit this revenue target," which you can say that, but I'm trying to hit this revenue target. Do this, and then pay them only based off of that. Like I think that's a little misguided in my opinion.
I'm gonna go back to what you said about price. Understand that people price their own services based on their confidence level in the marketplace. I want to say that one more time. People price, and it's all subconscious based on the confidence level they have in their own service that they're providing. Right. So if you find somebody that's $50 a month, that tells me right off the bat they don't have enough confidence to be able to compete with the best in the industry. And that's the same thing with cleaners, right? It's the same thing with any service based business, HVA, plumbing, whatever it is. So that's number one. Number two, I don't go through all the stuff that Kenny's talking about. And I agree with him 1,000%. All I do is ask for a case study. If they cannot give me a case study and specifically something in a market that I'm going into, I am not going to be interested at all. And I believe that that revenue manager should be confident enough in their own ability to refer you to clients that they are currently working with. So if you can get those two things and then the pricing's in line, then I'll continue to have the conversation. But those are things I will vet personally without even having a phone call Like, fire off an email, go to the website, convert on the form. Here's what I need. I'm looking to, start now. And, just make your own decision. Most importantly, you got to be informed as you go through that process. But I believe the case studies and then verifying that with the homeowner is the easiest way for you to be able to figure out if they can actually produce the goods.
Yeah, I love that. And I love too, I know people are listening to this episode, but if you watch this live, right before Bill started talking there, he like put on glasses and leaned in and was like, do this. It got very serious for a second. So
I was struggling
I was
to,
like, this is I'm
I'm
like,
fifty-one,
I was like,
Kenny.
oh, he's gonna drop some good
You see
nuggets.
that there? You see the gray beard? And I
Okay,
mean, I'm 51. I was
yeah.
struggling to see and I can't read anything. And I'm getting a million slacks while we're going through this. I got to turn my other monitor away.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
no,
that in all seriousness, you're going to make or there's two things here. You're going to make or break based on your property. If your property is a piece of shit, don't hire a revenue manager because they're not going to make a difference for it. Kenny stated that. Number two, it's really vetting and getting the confirmation, the social proof, right? That's the only way you're really going to be able to vet it. Same thing happens with people in their contractor issues, right? They don't vet the contractors, the handymen, the people that come in to do projects. So awesome, great stuff, great episode, Kenny. If you guys have any questions, just leave a comment down below. If you're listening on Amazon, wherever you get your podcast, please, leave us a review. That would mean the world to us. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you guys next week.